Hey everybody, this is Pastor V. Thank you for joining in. So again, don't forget to say hello and let us know where you are listening from. I am repping what? If anybody can tell me what university this is, it's a HBCU. Let me know if you know. See that? That's it right there. Okay. Here's a hint. It's in Alabama. There you go. It's in Alabama. HBCU. Anyway, thank you guys for being here, and we're continuing on with the points that Bishop Johnson brought up for us in Sunday's message as he talked about 3 steps to rise up and build. If you missed it, go back. You can see it right here on Facebook, or you can catch our podcast. And our podcast is available on both Spotify and Apple Music. At Spotify and Apple Music, just Zion Temple Community Church podcast. You can go right there and see it, hear it. And yet last Monday, we talked about the first point. The first step was to recognizing your value, right? As we looked at Nehemiah, and in Nehemiah, he's getting ready to build this wall. He's invited by Sanballat to come down. Sanballat has been distracting him by sending all these distractions, and they said things like, hey, they also devalued what they were doing. Sanballat and his group said, and Tobiah said things like, the wall will never stand. How you can't you're going to make something out of ashes and rubble and turn it back into something, questioning what seems to be impossible and illogical as well. And then he also says, even if you did do it, it's going to be so weak and so feeble that if foxes brushed up against it, it's going to fall down. Sometimes we have people like that in our lives, right? Those are people who always seem to see the negative or see what you're doing as impossible. They are people who always downgrade what you're going to do or what you're thinking about doing, or they're discouragers. Well, today we're going to call those suckers. And I call them suckers. I'll tell you a story at the end of why I call them suckers. But we titled this, Get Rid of the Suckers in Your Life. And which brings us to point 2 of Bishop Johnson's sermon. And it was, his second point was to, in fact, his exact words, let me look them up, was to reject opposing people. So reject the opposition. And when I think of those words, reject the opposition, I think of things like Psalm 1:1, how that if we are the people of God, it says that that we don't walk in the way. Psalms 1:1. Blessed is the man who walks not in the counsel of the ungodly. So we don't seek their wisdom on how to do things. Who stands not in the way with sinners. We're not always, hanging around with them. Nor sits in the scornful of the wicked. But his delight is in the law of the Lord. And in the Lord's law he does meditate day and night. Now, I know that some people will say, well, we're supposed to be nice to everybody. But let me tell you something. When anything comes against what God has given you, you got to shut it down and shut it out. In fact, Paul wrote this talking about our opposition. He talks about the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but they're mighty through God, and that they are able to pull down strongholds, right? Not only do they pull down strongholds, but that we are to pull down every stronghold, everything in our mind that exalts itself against the knowledge of God. And so if they're going against what God has told you to do, they're not for you to hang out with. You want to smile and keep it pushing. Maybe they're just not for this season of your life. I think about Hebrews. The writer of Hebrews wrote this, let us lay aside every sin and weight. And then, what do I need to do? What do I need to do to spend less time with them? To cut them out. Cut them off for this season of my life where I'm going. You see, you can't do what God has called you to do. You can't even value your ministry when you have someone in your ear all the time telling you what you can't do or what you shouldn't do or how you should do it, making you into what they want you to be. Here's a question. Are you what God wants you to be? Are you where God wants you to be? Or are you becoming what your mama thinks you should be or your daddy thinks you should be? I pause intentionally. Think about it. And so what you got to do, you got to let them go. Some people are just parasites in our lives, right? So they're everything. A parasite is something that attaches itself to a host, and the parasite receives all the benefit of being attached to the host without offering any value to the host. I can't repeat that because I don't know how I said it. A parasite is that which attaches itself to a host and receives all the benefit from being attached to the host, but offers no value to the host in which it is attached. Some of us have parasites in our lives, and God says, hey, it's time to let those parasites go. They're benefiting from you. How many, you have friends who constantly they drain you, but never give? Don't answer. Don't answer online, okay? But do something about it. And then finally, I said, let the suckers go. My mother-in-law grew up in Louisiana, so she just has this natural ability of some agrarian fortitude, right? Able to identify weeds and that kind of stuff. Well, one day Roz was out in our garden, and we had a rose garden in the house that we lived in, and it was a line of roses. And my godmother kind of takes her foot and kind of smashes this thing, and she tells Roz, cut that one off, cut that one off, cut that off. And to me, those stems looked exactly like the rest of the rose stems. And she says, no, they look like the rose stem, but if you look closely, there's a difference. And those are what we call suckers. They prevent the actual rose and the rose stem from receiving the necessary nutrients to maximize its growth. So they are sucking away the nutrients. So guess what? The 3 steps, step number 2, in to be able to rise up and build what God has called you to build. Step number 2 is get rid of the suckers. Bishop put it nicely, and he called it resist the opposition or reject the opposition. Now, get rid of the suckers in your life. So, God bless you. Thank you for spending break time with Pastor V, and give thought to that seriously. What is or who is? Not always a who. What or who is being a sucker, stopping you from receiving the full nutrients that God has for you? And you know what? It's time to get rid of them, because God's calling us to rise up from this situation and build. Thanks for spending break time with Pastor V. I look forward to more time with you. I will see you on Friday. Don't forget, go back and listen to Sunday's service, or at least the message from Bishop Johnson. You have ways you can do it. It's right here on Facebook. You can go to youtube.com/Zion Temple. And thirdly, you can hear the message on our podcast, either Apple Podcast or drawing a blank. I see the picture in my head. Somebody help me here. I can't believe I'm forgetting this. Spotify. Okay, Apple or Spotify. Alrighty, God bless you. Thank you. Have a great day.